Our video today is going to take us through multiplying and dividing of fractions. Just want to go through some tips to help you kind of go through this part. Personally, I think it's a little bit easier than adding, so we'll see how that goes. The first thing is, which makes it a lot easier, is you don't need a common denominator. So there's no need for that. Two, you're looking to reduce or simplify inside the problem before you actually multiply. So instead of working with large numbers at the end, you can break them down smaller when you can actually see them a little easier. Three, we're going to bring in a term we call reciprocal. We'll talk more about that when we get into the dividing part of this. Any mixed numbers must be turned into an improper fraction. So anytime that you see that, we have to redo that. So again, that brings in something that we've done in the past. And number five, you should only have to turn answer into a mixed number if it's an improper. And sometimes they don't even want you to turn it into a mixed number. They'll have you leave it as is. And we'll talk about that as a part of the video as well today. So let's go. Here are some problems. So when we take this, we have a mixed number times a proper fraction. So our mixed number has to be turned into a improper fraction. And then we can go ahead and just multiply. And we're multiplying numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. And again, you notice we have an improper fraction. So we want to reduce these as we go. So our answer comes out to be 1 and 11/15. In our second problem, it's kind of hard to see. We start with 2/3 and times 18 over 24. What you're seeing is you're seeing the reduction in the problem itself. So what I'm doing is I'm saying 3 goes into 18 and 3 goes into 3. So 3 into 3 leaves me with 1. 3 into 18 will leave me 6. And then 2 also goes into 24. 2 goes into 2 once. 2 into 24 will leave me 12. Now, if you notice, I have 6 and 12 crossed out as well because I know 6 goes into 12, 6 goes into 6. So I can divide 6 into 1, 6 gives me 1, 6 into 12 gives me 2. So I've reduced everything in the problem as far as I can go, which gives me an easy number of 1/2. So when I reduce in the problem, I'm looking at what goes into the numbers. So a lot of people will look at this and go, well, I don't see anything. Well, even if it's not the same number in regards to what's down here or up here, you want to look for a common denominator or a greatest common factor for that. So not the common denominator, we don't need those. So we always want to cross. So here is kind of the directionality of that happening. We can go numerator, denominator, numerator to denominator, and then we can reduce its own little fraction as well. So if done, the answer will already be reduced as shown in this problem. And I don't have to work with big numbers in the sense of taking 2 times 18, 3 times 24. So as we continue with this, we're looking at 1/7 times 2 1/4. So again, we're changing our mixed number into an improper fraction. We're multiplying once we notice that we cannot reduce anything here, and we end up with 9/28. In the middle, we have 2 mixed numbers, so we have to do this twice and putting them into improper fractions. So again, we want to check and make sure that there's no reduction taking place. And then you notice I left it as an improper fraction. So in some of the cases, look at your answers. They may not ask you to turn them into improper or mixed numbers. They might want you to just leave it as is. So when we look at multiplying 2 again, we change this into an improper fraction. Now here's where the issue comes in. When I'm coming around and helping, I'll look and say, is there anything that we can reduce? And mostly we'll say no. But if we look at it, we know that these are both even, so I know 2 will go into them. So at least if I can start the process with dividing a number into it, even if it's the number 2, I can make them smaller in working with what I'm doing. So I would take 2 into 8, 2 into 22, 2 into 22 leaves me 11, 2 into 8 leaves me 4. So now I have at least a smaller set of numbers to work with. Instead of 22 times 23, now I'm taking 11 times 23 and 5 times 4, which gives me an improper, which again I turned into a mixed number. By this time you should be pretty good at changing impropers to mixed and the other way around. Now if we go into dividing, which is the other way of doing this, we technically cannot divide fractions. So again, we want to make sure that our mixed numbers are turned into improper fractions. So when we bring this one down, we want to do that first, keep our division sign with the fraction that it's with it. So we want to make sure that when we do divide that we're going to now take the reciprocal. The reciprocal is simply flipping the fraction over, and then you get back to multiplication. So the moment that you reciprocal, you're going to be back to your multiplication rules of what we just did at the beginning of the video. So again, we're going to look to see if we can reduce, and if we can't, we're going to multiply numerator times denominator, or numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, and then we get a 38 over 11, and we come up with 3 and 5 11ths. So again, when we're dividing, we're reciprocating this, taking the reciprocal, make it a little easier on me, take the reciprocal of the second fraction. Okay, it's always the second fraction that you're dealing with. The first fraction doesn't change unless you have to change it into an improper fraction. So a few division problems. So again, we're changing and making sure that all of our mixed numbers are in improper fractions first, keeping that as a division problem. Once we have that, we reciprocal our second fraction, we can multiply. And again, I should have seen this here, and you could reduce. So if I didn't, I'm looking at big numbers. But if I do, now I can work with smaller numbers and make it a little bit easier on myself in reduction of that problem. But if you don't, and you don't see it, just know that yes, you can still multiply and everything will come out the way that it will show up. In our middle one, we have two mixed numbers. So again, we're taking them in improper fractions. We're dividing still because we have not taken the reciprocal. In this step, we do take the reciprocal, so now we can multiply. And again, we're going to look to reduce, and nothing reduces, and we end up with a proper fraction. So we don't have to change it into a mixed number. Our last problem here is we have, again, two mixed numbers. Again, our steps are first, mix numbers into improper fractions. We're going to still be dividing. Once we reciprocal, then we multiply. Again, we see if we can cancel, and here 4 and 6. Well, 2 goes into both of them, so I can make them a little bit smaller. So I end up with 57 over 34, which gives me 1 and 23/24 once I divide it out. So to finish up, let's go through some keys of what you want to do with the video and with this concept. One is you don't need common denominator multiplying and dividing fractions. You want to look at if you can reduce before you multiply. So again, numerator to denominator. You want to change all of your mixed numbers into improper fractions. This should be done before this. So make sure that this takes care of it, and then you can look to reduce. If you're dividing, you must reciprocal the second fraction. But again, you want to make sure that your mixed numbers are into improper fractions first. And when you're all said and done, check the answer choices to see if it's left as an improper or if you have to change it to a mixed number. So again, take care of your notes, use them in class, use the examples, ask your questions, and good luck with this section.